back again, are we, traveller? And you didn't even buy me a drink the last time. Perhaps I need to tell you a story that will whet your appetite a little more than the last one. Maybe that was not to your liking. Perhaps I should tell you a story centred around a tavern, much like the one you and I are sitting in now. This one is located in Rycroft, a small farming town near Silverhaven on the continent of Ebendale, largely populated by halflings. There are a few other races who live there, humans, dwarves, even a half-elf. Central to the village is the Crofter's Cup Tavern, a place where many of the farm workers like to go after a hard day's work. The building itself is full-sized, which may surprise you in a halfling town. The furniture within, and indeed the bar, are the appropriate size for the smaller races, but the exterior of the building itself is one such as you or I would inhabit, though I will concede that I am on the shorter side even for an elf. The tavern is owned and managed by Gladys, and she is the reason that the building is larger, for she herself is on the large side, quite tall, about 9 feet tall, muscular, stocky, green-tinged skin. Gladys is a half-ogre, not a race that we come across that often, but she was adopted by the halflings as a baby, and then she grew, and grew, and grew. Gladys is a woman, and like many women, likes to make an effort with her appearance. A mass of long, luxurious, silken blonde curls falls from her head, though be careful not to pull on her hair too hard or you might pull off the wig, revealing the scabby, bald scalp underneath. She likes to smear eyeshadow on her eyelids in the most vibrant shade of blue she can find, and her lips are often painted red, though whether it is lipstick or blood it can sometimes be hard to tell. And when she smiles, it can be quite a terrifying sight. Gladys only has about 3 teeth, and they are varying shades of yellow. She does the best she can with her makeup. After all, half-ogres are known more for painting their faces with the blood of their kills, not cosmetics. She always wears a dress, and her favourite is one of a vibrant pink hue. A tent in a former life, it has been custom-made to fit her unusual physique. Even the most exotic outfitters in Ebendale don't tend to cater for women of Gladys's dimensions. She does her best to carry herself in what she considers to be a demure and ladylike manner, but when she gets angry, her half-ogre nature tends to take over. She's been known to drop-kick more than one drunken punter out if they have not behaved themselves accordingly. Gladys, like many mortals, longs to find love. I hear that she has her eye on Captain Darrell Malone. He leads the Peace Wardens in Rycroft, though I fear that may be something of a lost cause. The only person Captain Malone loves is himself. But she did recently have a tryst with a dwarf who shall remain nameless, but I'm sure you may be able to work out who I mean if you ever come across him. Known to be quite the drinker and womanizer, when he arrived at Rycroft his behaviour was no different. He sank tankard after tankard of ale, and let me reassure you that the tankards are also full-size, for halflings do like to drink, or so I hear. It was not that long before he became quite inebriated, and his beer goggles must have been a very strong pair indeed, for when Gladys came out, he told her she was the most beautiful creature he had ever seen. He told her he would marry her. She was that beautiful. Gladys was overcome. I don't know if you have ever seen a half-ogre blush, but it is quite the sight to behold. You can really see the redness rising underneath the green skin. Gladys smiled, picked him up under one beefy arm, plate armour and all, and dragged him off to her nest on the ground floor at the back. They have reinforced the building, but it's still not really safe for Gladys to go upstairs. Once safely in her room, Gladys unceremoniously dropped the dwarf, with a clang of plate armour and weaponry, onto what I suppose you would call a bed. A pile of furs and other materials, and goodness knows what else on the bottom less, for whenever Gladys felt the bed was getting a little thin, she would merely throw new items on top, leaving whatever was underneath to fester. The dwarf looked a little sick, though whether that was the drink or the proximity of Gladys with her pungent breath, I cannot say. She placed a giant, meaty hand as gently as she could on either side of his head. Perhaps it was just as well he had not yet removed his helmet, for gentle to a half-ogre is still quite rough, especially to a dwarf. He could only sit there, unable to move in her grip, as her face moved closer, 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 her eyes beginning to cross as she struggled to maintain eye contact with him. I'm not sure if you've ever seen a dwarf next to a half-ogre, but the size difference is considerable, at least 4 feet, perhaps even more. Her lips touched his. Her mouth opened. I wish I could tell you that this was a passionate, romantic kiss. However, she kissed him, trying very hard not to swallow his head whole. And when she pulled back, there was a saliva trail, along with the remnants of whatever Gladys had eaten over the previous few days left in his beard. At this point, he struggled out of his helmet, perhaps afraid that she may crush it and he would be unable to remove it. Gladys took this as a cue to disrobe herself, slowly removing her pink dress, in a way that she believed would come across as flirtatious and coquettish. Gladys did not bother with underwear. It was far too much hassle to try and find anything of a size that could accommodate her needs, so she stood there, naked, her wig having slipped to one side in the effort to remove the gown. The dwarf, nervously, stood up and began to stagger towards the door, but Gladys put out a hand to stop him, turning him to face her, smiling at him in a way that he perceived as a ferocious leer. She asked him to undress, and in absolute terror, he did as he was asked. It takes around 15 minutes at the best of times to get in or out of plate armour, and when you are drunk and terrified, it takes even longer. Gladys stood and watched for a full half-hour, perhaps enjoying the view, perhaps to ensure he did not attempt to escape once more, as he struggled out of his plate armour and layers of cloth that adorned his body, until finally he too was naked. Half-ogres are not known for their intelligence, and it seems that Gladys had not really thought through the logistics of taking a dwarven lover. It did not take Gladys long to realise that she would have to go underneath in order to avoid suffocating or potentially crushing her new beau. She lay down as gently as she could on her back on the nest, throwing him a lustful gaze. The dwarf, who had perhaps sobered up a little since he first entered the room, knew he had no choice now but to go through with the evening. He did his best to clamber on top of Gladys, finding foot and handholds amongst her green flesh. Gladys had not yet taken up the practice of regular bathing, and it was quite the sensory experience for him. She was breathing heavily, and as he attempted to stand on her belly, he tripped and fell, landing between her mountainous breasts. For an awful moment he could feel the weight of them pressing in on him, almost crushing him, before her large hands grabbed them, pulling them apart and setting him free. He began to make his way in the other direction, rooting around for what he knew he must find. And it is here, traveller, that I will leave you, for What happens in the bedroom sometimes is best left there. But if you do go to Rycroft, watch out in case Gladys sets her eyes on you.